Hi and welcome back to the channel. Recently I saw a few of my favorite content creators releasing videos about their 10 out of 10 games, and I thought it would be super fun to do the same. For me, a 10 out of 10 is not necessarily a perfect game. A 10 out of 10 is a game that manages to amaze me over and over again, is a ton of fun in every minute of its gameplay, or just tells a story I can remember years after playing it. In my list you see a lot of recent games, more than I expected myself. So I'm curious. What are some games you would give a 10 out of 10, and what do you think about my picks? Tell me in the comments. It's always remarkable when a game that's over 20 years old holds up that well. Metroid Prime is an outstanding game, both in its core gameplay and overall atmosphere. And the remastered version released this year improves on exactly the right aspects, like the visuals and controls. I think Metroid Prime Remaster is a 10 out of 10 because it doesn't have any flaws. The sense of exploration and use of abilities are designed perfectly, because you always get excited after obtaining a new ability, since you get access to a bunch of new paths and secrets to find. Metroid Prime also captures the feeling of isolation and loneliness like no other game if you ask me. This is one of these games I come back to replay it multiple times, and that's why this is a 10 out of 10 for me. It doesn't get better when it comes to Metroid games. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is another 10 out of 10 for me because, and I actually can't believe I say this, I think it's better than Breath of the Wild in every single way. While Breath of the Wild was already an outstanding example for open world level design and is still one of the best open worlds ever, Tears of the Kingdom not only expands the map, but it feels like a true playground thanks to Link's new abilities. The endless possibilities of what you can build with the Ultra Hand are mesmerizing and truly unbelievable. I had so much fun building stuff to explore places I never thought I could reach. Also, I think the story is more engaging than in its predecessor. The shrines and temples are even more creative, and the world itself is filled with more exciting things to do, and I love all that. Tears of the Kingdom really is a remarkable achievement for video games. Chain Echoes is the hidden indie gem of 2022. It tells an emotional story full of twists and unexpected moments, and I couldn't stop playing this because I always wanted to know what happens next. The cast of characters is great because everyone gets an interesting backstory, and I wanted to get to know every single detail of the world's characters and lore. Chain Echoes is a 10 out of 10 for me because it's the perfect mix of old school games like Final Fantasy VI and fresh modern ideas. The combat system, for example, is turn-based, but the overdrive mechanic spices things up a little. Every action has an effect on the overdrive meter, moving it either left or right. Your goal is to stay in the green section, since it buffs your characters, while the red section means a bunch of disadvantages in battle. There are many more things that make Chain Echoes an incredible game, and a 10 out of 10 for me, but I'll leave it at that. Otherwise this video would be 10 times long. I don't really need to say anything about Chrono Trigger, right? This came out in 1995 and is still one of the best RPGs ever made. The story and characters are still amazing, even almost 30 years later, and the turn-based combat system, where precision matters a lot, is still incredibly fun today. What I find amazing even in 2023 is the time travel in Chrono Trigger. Doing something in one timeline can have an effect on the other timelines. That's why Chrono Trigger always feels like a game where I can discover new things in every playthrough, at least to me. The beautiful character design by Akira Toriyama and the iconic soundtrack composed by Yasunori Mitsuda and Nobuo Uematsu both contribute a lot to making this game the masterpiece it is today. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for me, without a question. God of War Ragnarok completely blew me away last year. God of War from 2018 is a great game, but Ragnarok improved on basically everything. The story felt more emotional to me because of the epic scale and ending. The performances and some of the scenes are so incredibly well written and acted, they should win an Oscar for that. Seeing the relationship between Kratos and Atreus develop from the first game into how these two characters interact with each other now is just heartwarming to see. Also, Ragnarok improved things about the combat I wouldn't have dreamed of after playing the 2018 entry. Not only does Kratos feel just a little bit more agile, Santa Monica Studios added cool things to the mix. For me, this is a 10 out of 10 because this game doesn't have any flaws really. Okay, maybe the pacing wasn't the best, but that's just a little gripe I have here. God of War Ragnarok is a monumental game, and one of the best PlayStation exclusives out there. The next game I would give a 10 out of 10 is Dragon Quest XI, especially the Definitive Edition. This is another one of those games I finished more than once, and I just can't think of one mistake this game did. For me, the characters are the absolute highlight, since they are all likable, and over the course of 100 plus hours I spent on my first playthrough, I felt emotionally attached like I rarely do in video games. That's also because the story was surprisingly engaging and epic. Dragon Quest is known for its loyalty to its turn-based combat system, and Dragon Quest XI also stick to its roots. It's a simple combat system that I love because it requires you to plan ahead your actions and think of a good strategy. Especially the bosses in the later game can get quite tough, and I love the challenge here. The world and music are fantastic too. So yeah, Dragon Quest XI overall is just a well-designed game. It's lighthearted, always a ton of fun, and packed with emotional moments and great characters. That's why this is a 10 out of 10 for me. Monster Hunter World is in the top 3 of my most played games ever. Only topped by Final Fantasy XIV and probably Phantasy Star Online. I spent over 1,300 hours here, so that should be enough of an indicator how much I love this game. Sometimes I find it a bit absurd how incredibly fun the gameplay loop of Monster Hunter is. Slaying monsters to craft new equipment to slay even bigger monsters never gets old. Monster Hunter World and its brilliant expansion Iceborne not only have some of the best designed enemies in all of video games, the combat flow, feel for the weapons and all the mechanics around that are insanely addicting. I mean, this game has a huge span of feelings that range from frustration when you die during combat to incredibly satisfying highs when you dominate a monster and destroy it in no time. Monster Hunter World is a 10 out of 10 for me because the execution of how the weapons and enemies are designed is beyond real. It's actually a bit hard to describe how good this feels, so I only say Monster Hunter World has my favorite action combat systems of all time. What is left to say about Elden Ring that hasn't already been said? For me personally, Elden Ring is the best From Software title, and it quickly became one of my favorite games of all time. It has one of the greatest open worlds ever created. There are so many secrets to find. Tombs, caves, mines and ruins are hidden everywhere in the lands between. And in all of them you find treasures that are useful and feel significant to the gameplay. May it be a new spell, weapon, armor or summon, everything can be the one thing that changes your playstyle completely. That way, From Software created an amazing feeling of freedom in the exploration itself and the customization too. From boss fights to level design, Elden Ring never ceased to astonish me. This is a 10 out of 10, a true masterpiece, and in my opinion, one of the best games ever created. The next game I would give a 10 out of 10 is the indie masterpiece Crosscode. The main reason why is, this game never stopped to surprise me. Never. The story was filled with surprising moments that were more emotionally impactful than I would have imagined when I started the game. The combat is simple at first, but later surprised me with incredible skill animations and great boss fights that played a lot like a puzzle. And speaking of puzzles, they surprised me a lot too. The sheer amount and creativity of the dungeons and their puzzles completely blew me away. Also because they are all designed so well. They are difficult but insanely satisfying to solve. And then there is this beautiful soundtrack, where a lot of the tracks reminded me of games I played as a teenager, because they are clearly inspired by classic game soundtracks like Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger and Phantasy Star. Crosscode not only is a 10 out of 10 for me, but one of my favorite games of all time, for all the reasons I mentioned above. If you want to hear more about why Crosscode is an underrated masterpiece, be sure to check out my video, The Beauty of Crosscode. But first, we have a look on the last entry on the list. Everyone who watches my videos already knew that Final Fantasy VII would appear on this list. It's a genre-defining game that may not be perfect, I know that. And the graphics age poorly, I know. But man, the emotions I feel when I play this are unreal. It has a complex and mature story that I still love to experience, even after more than 25 years. The story has one of the most iconic plot twists in the genre and one of the most surprising and emotional moments in all of video games. Something I will never forget. But not only is the story my favorite in the series, the cast of characters is too. They all have their own interesting backstory, well-written personalities and great moments. The materia system is my favorite ability system in the series, as I love experimenting with different combinations of materia and customizing my set of skills with it. I could talk hours about Final Fantasy VII and why it's a 10 out of 10 for me. But I guess it's more than enough when I say Final Fantasy VII not only is my favorite game in the series, but my favorite game of all time, and it always will be. Thanks so much for watching. What game would you give a 10 out of 10? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, I would be happy if you subscribe to my channel. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.